then I guess that's a good bridge for us to talk to Joel. Joel Hogarth is the CEO and founder of Zero Carbon Forest Investment. You are also the advisor to IDCTA. So bring us full circle on this with your presentation and bring us back to what Parisa said.
No, absolutely, and it will. So we covered some similar grounds, and Reza and I have some similar views on where this needs to go. If you could put up my slides, please. So what I want to talk to you about first is, how do we value a rainforest? Now, ecologists like Pat Reza will tell you that natural forests are irreplaceable wonders of the natural world, teeming with unique and fragile species, providing carbon sinks and lungs that very literally help keep the world breathing. But until very recently, as a global species, we've placed very little economic value on our natural environment. And the result is that's come a distant second to the pressing demands of human development. You know, my own native country, that's the United Kingdom, has only 2.5% of its natural forests remaining. And over half of that has been logged and replaced with non-indigenous species. As a reflection of our own priorities, we reserve more land for the royal family than we do for our natural forests in the United Kingdom. You know, Indonesia's rainforests are a unique global heritage. Pat Reza showed we have 120 million hectares of natural rainforest. That's 50 times the natural forest per person than my home country, the UK. And at the same time, Indonesia's GDP per capita is 1/10 of the UK. It does not work for developed nations which have already exploited their natural environment and created huge historical carbon emissions to say that developing countries like Indonesia should not use their natural forests for their own economic development. And that is why, if we, as a global species, truly value our rainforests, they must be given an economic value. Without a monetary value, rainforest conservation will always lose out to the competitive demands of palm oil, acacia, and other land uses. If a developed world values rainforest conservation as much as it values chocolate spread on its morning toast, this needs to be reflected in the decision it makes with its wallets. At ZCF, we can imagine a world where producers of palm oil-based products can offset their carbon, balancing the land use for food. And look, we all understand that palm oil and acacia are important products for the world. The world can't stop using palm oil and acacia tomorrow. But we can balance the requirements of using our land for food and for paper and for timber with conservation purposes. And we can preserve the unique natural heritage. The carbon economy provides a truly sustainable economic mechanism to allocate the cost of conserving the natural environments to those who consume the most natural resources. And although the true value of a rainforest cannot be fully measured in the carbon it stores, the carbon economy provides the currency needed to facilitate this equitable economic exchange. Move to the next slide. I want to just talk about what Indonesia is doing to create an economic value for carbon. And I want to look at the new Indonesian regulatory framework. I don't just want to talk about the implementing regulations on the economic carbon value chain, which are incredibly important, but I also want to talk about how Indonesia has set up a structure where we can ascribe a legal and economic value to a rainforest. The first thing is, Indonesia provides a framework for secure property rights for commercial rainforest. PBPH is the same concession is being used for rainforest conservation as is being used for palm oil and for timber and for other uses. That provides a very secure property right which can give long-term permanent solutions to rainforest conservation. Foreign investment friendly. Indonesia has a freely convertible currency. It welcomes foreign investment into its forestry sector, both through foreign direct investment and through any number of creative economic instruments, including, in fact, ZCF is a Sharia-compliant platform, including Islamic financing. It has a freely convertible currency. Bank Indonesia allows funding to come in and out. The national registration system. I am actually a big supporter of the new implementing regulations, and I do understand that these are brand new, and any new set of regulations needs time to work out exactly how in practice it's going to be implemented. But these implementing regulations provide for an efficient, straightforward local registration system, and certainly as far as I can see, and I'm very interested in continuing the conversation with Riza on this. We understand that Vera is one of the most important international standards. We, at the moment, don't see any option but to get our carbon credits registered both with Indonesia and with Vera. But as you'll see on my next slide, harmonization and mutual recognition is an important step to make that process work a lot faster. Then freely tradable credits. Again, the implementing regulations provide that carbon credits can be traded both on and off exchange. In fact, one thing that is very clear that not all carbon credits are equal. A high quality blue carbon project will have a much higher value per credit than a generic credit formed by putting some sort of device on a dirty coal power station. Not every credit is equal. And what that means is, while I'm a supporter of exchange-traded credits, the problem with exchange-traded credits is there'll often be a race to the bottom, and only the most generic credits will end up being traded through the exchange. In fact, the highest quality purchasers will look for the highest quality products, and they will attract a premium pricing. And so, again, I'm very pleased to see that you can get freely tradable credits, and certainly, as I see it, there's nothing to stop Netflix or Shell or any of those other purchases of credits that Riza had on his slides from acquiring in the Indonesian national system and using those credits for its voluntary carbon purposes. And the most important thing that we also see is that the regulations are Article 6 ready. So the implementing regulations contain detailed provisions for international cooperation under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, as well as forms of letters of authorization that can be granted to public and private actors. And if we move on to the next slide, I'll say why I think that could actually be a game changer for it. So what do I think needs to be done? I think the fundamentals of the framework provided by Indonesia are absolutely sound and provide everything that's needed for forest carbon to be traded and to be registered and traded in an efficient manner. But there is still things that both Indonesia and the international community can do to facilitate the trade of carbon. And as part of the Indonesian Carbon Trade Association, I agree with Pat Riza that one of our key roles is to facilitate this international cooperation between commercial, government, and international actors in the carbon trading space. So I do, if anybody from Vera is watching this, I would invite them to participate with the Indonesian Carbon Trade Association, and we would love to find a way for this to work as efficiently as possible. But we do need to harmonize our procedures, whether that's through a mutual recognition, whether that's through adopting similar procedures, and a straightforward single registration process which meets both Indonesian and international standards would be absolutely ideal and would be transformational for the industry. And that is something that I think I speak for Riza, that IDCTA will work very, very hard towards making that a reality. Also, I think harmonization of standards. This is the methodologies, again, that Pat Riza spoke about. We need to have measurement, reporting, and verification. We need to have audits. It's very important that people have confidence in the quality of the products and the projects that we are doing. But what we don't want is Indonesian national registration system to have a different set of standards from Vera and from Gold Standard, and for everything to be going in different directions. And so again, an important role of IDCTA is to facilitate that harmonization of standards so that we're not getting different results. And just one thing that I think we've mentioned a little bit, some discussion also on LinkedIn, is that things like risk buffers and treatment of buffers could be a little bit inconsistent between the Indonesian regulations and some of the international certification agencies, and that's an area I think there's room for improvement. And yes, I do think it is incumbent upon the international registries, if they want to have a role in Indonesian forest carbon, but they must engage with Indonesia and Indonesia's methodologies. And then thirdly, Article 6 implementation. And this is where developed countries need to put an economic value onto our rainforests. If you truly value rainforest conservation, they need to consider cooperation with Indonesia for recognition of rainforest credits and how they can encourage rainforest conservation credits within their own economies. It is insane that European countries, for example, will pay Indonesia for palm oil to use in their biodiesel, but will not allow the offsetting of an Indonesian forest carbon credit. And that is something, again, for the international community to consider, that the economics are all designed towards using land for palm oil and timber, which they're very happy to pay for, but there's not yet an economic mechanism to offset that with rainforest conservation. Next slide. So, in summary, the carbon economy has enormous potential to encourage conservation rainforest investment by placing an economic value on rainforests. Developed countries actually contribute economically to the destruction of rainforests through consumptions of vast amounts of palm oil, consumer food, cosmetic, biodiesel, huge timber and paper requirements. And it's not sustainable for developed countries to continue this commercial pressure on our rainforests without offsetting the land use through active conservation efforts. The carbon economy provides a mechanism to do this. There is a price to conservation, and this can be met through an economic value on rainforest. Economics loves an equilibrium. If a global community values chocolate spreads, shampoo, and slightly cheaper gas more than conserving our natural rainforest, those values will be reflected in our land use. Let's change that equilibrium.
And it's harmonization. What do we need to do to go forward? What is the right way to go forward? I mean, and please connect it to either blue or green carbon, because your title is blue carbon, right? But you also mentioned blue carbon and how important it is as well. Let's start with Riza, because he knows more of the national standards than maybe. Let's start with that part. Where did we go? We just recently read the new Ministry of Environment decree, right? So maybe we could start there.
I think Glory knows better than me, but
okay. We can invite Glory as well. Yeah. That's why it's important.
So
okay.
Let me just get a high-level summary about this. I think the Indonesian standard will have a similar approach and methodologies. They have like a panel also that can say that this methodologies works and this not works and that sort of thing. And they go also with the validation process and issuance. So I think because the Indonesian panel of this SRN, I believe they know more about the local specific condition of the Indonesian soil and landscape. That's why they can work very, very fast. It's not that this is a low quality or low integrity validation process, but I think it will grow in time. So I think they need support. The government needs support. Yes. So that's what we are here for. So I think Joel also, even though he's Bule, but I think he's also an Indonesian Bule. So I always welcome that, and I think I appreciate that very much.
Okay. So Joel, so give us a taste of what he has said. International perspective, perhaps, or something.
Well, no. So I think the main issue is the Indonesian standards. They're very new, and it doesn't yet have a history behind it, which gives people for the confidence that are necessary. So I think certainly in the medium term, we are going to be in a situation where we need to develop the standards in parallel, and we need to harmonize them and keep them as close as possible to each other. But really what we don't want to do is burden conservation projects with double compliance, because that's a huge amount of burden if there's double registrations, double compliance. And what we need to do is try to create a streamlined process where we're developing projects at the moment. So our first project design document is going to be dual language in Bahasa first and English second. And we're trying to make sure that is compliant both with the SRN standards and with the Vera standards. And we're going to work with the SRN and with Vera to make sure that can be processed in parallel between the two. But I think this is a little bit of a test case, so we're hoping that both sides can be gotong royong.